you have to move towards the solutions and not worrying about providing them all yourself, right? I mean, that is part of the journey. That is part of the entrepreneurial journey. That's where we have to go.
This is Start, Grow, Manage, where we help managed service providers achieve the impact, freedom, and wealth you imagined back when you started your company. At Start, Grow, Manage, our tools, practices, and processes help you engage, energize, and execute on building a business that empowers an extraordinary life. Learn more about our programs and how they can fuel your fire at startgrowmanage.com/learn more. Let's go.
So, all right. So welcome to Start, Grow, Manage, where we grow MSPs. We teach MSPs who are great technically how to run a business, like MBA for MSPs. And today we're here with Mike Vertolli, the president of ComTec Systems, where he leads with a strategic vision and passion for innovation and telecommunications and IT. So right kind of group here. Under his leadership, ComTec has become a recognized industry leader at delivering cloud solutions and telecommunication services, I believe, right?
Cloud solutions, telecommunications consulting. Yes.
Telecommunications consulting. And welcome. Lovely to have you here, Mike.
Thank you.
And you actually joined the company and then ended up acquiring it, right?
It was actually a family venture in high school, but my stepfather actually passed shortly after graduation. So I kind of took a vision, some ideas, and it kind of morphed into what we are today. But yeah, it started off as a much different organization back in the early 90s.
Oh, that's great. So what was it
Yeah.
in the 90s?
When I was in high school, we were really just doing mobile phone installations, and they just had come out. But this is pretty much pre-internet, pre-Microsoft. So it was at the advent of the technology shift that we've seen over the last 30 years.
So and so you've migrated to what? So you're starting with mobile phone installations, and now tell us a bit about what ComTec does.
It was, I think like any organization, you're always failing forward, right? You're trying new things, and technology is one of the fastest shifting verticals. So what I did maybe in the 90s, every 7-year stretch, I'd say there's a new transition into the next best, greatest thing. We're not a bleeding edge company, but we were very much on the forefront of new technologies. So in 2012, the ComTec Systems parent company splintered into two. So we do a consulting division where we're doing public utility cost reductions, and we have cloud where we hyper focus on transportation services like internet and wide area networks and delivering voice over IP. So really the company has two major divisions, all of them really supported by a channel, and most of that channel is MSPs.
So what are the two divisions? That's the consulting and the voice over IP?
Yeah, so ComTec Systems is what the parent company, that's what we've been known and pretty recognized in the industry. But there's ComTec Cloud Services and ComTec Consulting that are two divisions that sit under it.
Cool. So one of the things that we like to talk about is the problem that you solve, right? We've learned that the essential piece of running a business is really understanding the problem that you solve for the client, which is beyond just the technology that we deliver. So what do you see as the technology, the problem that you solve for your client, and maybe also the problem that you solve for MSPs?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's actually a dual question. Most companies are trying to become profitable, right? I think any company, any CEO is always trying to grow revenue, save some money. And by and large, I think most organizations' expenses are people. So the efficiency of how you leverage technology can offset one of your biggest expenses. So that's what we offer. We're trying to make companies that are hyper-focused on growing optimize their labor force. So that's what technology does, and specifically telecommunications and transport services that we bring in are one of those things where we can really help organizations be efficient, build a better culture, better organization, hopefully make them more profitable. The entry point into a lot of these clients is managed service providers. So they're unique because they have the eyes and ears of the client. They're managing technology, but often they don't manage all the technology. So, when I interview, and we literally have hundreds of managed service providers that I work with, there's always 3 top questions or challenges that they have. They're always asking me, well, how are other people generating more revenue? How do we retain, and get more clients? And then how do we differentiate ourselves? So for us, once I understand their problems, we are a solutions provider. So that's really what our entire platform for our channel was built around, is solving the challenges that MSPs may have.
Yeah, and I think that that's really interesting, actually, that what your point about MSPs are so well positioned within the company to understand what's going on, what the company needs. I mean, we see that as well, right? Once you're working with the technology, you can see what the company needs, what they're doing, where the trend lines are going, and gives you such a great insight into what your client is going to need, what the MSP client is going to need going forward, right? So that you can get
Yeah.
in front of their needs and deliver more of that technology that you might not be managing.
Yeah, and I think if somebody asked me like the summary of when we meet MSPs, I would say the overwhelming summary is they don't see themselves for how others outside of the industry would see their position. They think, a lot of them are thinking, oh, I'm hired to do a certain chore. I manage something if it's broken. And what I see is the real successful ones really see themselves as a conduit between that client and any type of technology they may need. So if it's not something they offer, they make sure that they're the go-to person. And we're the ones
Yeah.
that we're a tool for them. We're a resource. We're helping to educate them on what's out there. I think most businesses don't want to have to make technology decisions in the dark without an expert at their side. So who better to turn to for every decision, which is other than the IT company that they've trusted to manage some of their infrastructure. So we help, and it goes back to those top challenges. When they recognize this, and I think they're inside of a box, sometimes they're so close to it, they don't really see the
Mhm.
position they're in. But when
Yeah.
we really help them take a big step away, we're going, every single client you have is not only the potential of revenue and referral for what you do specifically, but it gives you opportunity to be a more valuable resource to that client, to offer them higher level services that they can get paid on, to be
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
trusted. They'll have more higher client retention. It's a differentiator. So those are the things, once they see it and they start exploring it, most of them go, wow, you transformed my whole company. I didn't realize this for all these years.
So why is it hard for MSPs to see that opportunity, do you think?
I think there's different levels of MSPs, but I think by and large, most MSPs are started and ran by a founder who was very technical and didn't want to work for someone else, or had left another
Mhm.
organization. And like we always say, there's like three types of, there's the business owner, there's the entrepreneur, and there's the CEO. And they're still in that
Yeah.
business owner mindset where often they're working for the company and they're not working on the company. And because
Yeah.
they're usually the highest skilled person, they're very intimate with their clients, they're probably very hands-on. And because of that, they don't necessarily have the ability to step away like a bigger organization or a more strategical thinker could do,
Yeah.
and maybe offer those other
Yeah.
services.
Yeah,
It's
I
difficult.
think it is very difficult when you're in doing all of the technical work. It's almost like you can either have the detailed technical mind that's focusing on making all of the stuff work,
Yeah.
or you can take the bigger picture view and look forward and look around and see where the client is going. And I think it's very difficult to do both. I don't think you can do both at the same time, right? Like you can't have your brain in a super technical space and also have it be in a creative space.
Exactly right. Yeah, and I see that with a lot of industries, whether you're the plumber doing all the work or the electrician. I think it reaches a certain point of revenue where you have just enough excess revenue to put mid-level management in place and the trust and pay the salaries of all the people that you think could do the work that you would do as an owner just as well or better,
Yeah.
right? That's a very hard thing. And I think in the MSP space, it's as prevalent as any industry I've seen. The owners are very
Yeah,
capable.
it's interesting that you bring that up. I was just thinking about that in terms of my gardener, believe it or not. I mean, this guy is brilliant. He's actually the one who goes and he puts fertilizer on the lawn. Like he takes care of the lawn, does everything but mowing it, right? And a lot of them, basically don't communicate with you at all, and they come and they collect the check, they do what they have to do, and then they leave, right? But he's so good. He's got his emails going out. This is the time of year. This is what you should be doing for your lawn. This is how you should take care of it, right? Like he's communicating with people the whole time. He has really professional proposals that he sends out at the beginning of the year with online signing, and like
Yeah,
the whole thing is such a great experience because it's so
experience.
easy working with him, and he's giving you all of this information about how to, when to change your watering situation,
Hmm.
and that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Like you're either the one who
Very
just shows up
similar.
with the lawnmower and cuts the grass, or you're the
Yeah.
one who's giving tips, who's collecting on a proposal, who's treating it like a business rather than just something that you do for money.
Yeah, especially I think when people think, well, I don't offer it directly, so I shouldn't talk about it. And I think
Mm.
I'm going to use the gardener because I helped the company around here grow, actually explode. And one of the things I said, well, you have pavers and sprinklers and lawn cutting and maintenance and flowering and decking. They go, well, yeah, but I only know how to cut lawns. Like team up with people. And we started talking about how having like synergies and giving that client just one
Yeah.
experience with one person, and then eventually his company grew to offering those other things. But you have to start somewhere, and you can always start as a consultant. You can always start as just a go-to person for a referral. And that's kind of what we offer the MSPs, is saying that you don't have to be everything to everyone. In fact, most of the MSPs that I see fail think that they have to be offering services above and beyond their capabilities instead of teaming up with companies that could actually give them a much better
Yeah.
experience with the
Absolutely.
clients. Like telecommunications is a very specific field, tremendous
Yeah.
amount of specificity to what we do. And they go, well, we'll just be a telecom company. And then they're shocked because they're so splintered, their organization doesn't have a good message, and maybe they become subpar at everything, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, be great at something,
But
right? And then
that's
partner.
what happens, right? When you try to do everything, when you try to be everybody, then you become subpar at everything you do. Whereas when you narrow in and you focus on the thing that you are good at, and then find the partners, find the people around you so that you can build a more complete offering, then you can be exceptional at the thing that you do. And you can bring in people who are exceptional, and that allows you to grow your presence in many ways, right?
Yeah, it's similar to growing an organization. I mean, they say just hire people, smarter than you and get out of their way.
That's
And
right.
it's very similar with partners. Get partners that you trust that can do a better job than you, right? And trust that they're going to do it and get out of their way. And then collectively, your growth comes from referrals. Your growth comes from just learning. Your growth is going to come from your client size growing because now you have more capabilities. So I think a lot of
Well, and now you
MSPs get
can
stuck.
spend your time with the client. So you can spend your time understanding their strategic needs. You can understand what their business needs are, so you can develop business solutions for them rather than just focus on the technology, which is where the high margin stuff is, in really figuring out the business solutions.
Right. Yeah, so that's been, I think, the secret to our success after 30 years of doing the wrong things, often being too much to too many people. We found a really good vision with a teaming agreement with managed service providers where we help them grow their organization. We explain to them, they literally have no idea just how much potential revenue they're sitting on by
Yeah.
simply teaming up with an organization. Their clients are buying technology, whether they're buying it through them or going on Google or doing their own searches, and they expose themselves to companies coming in and taking their business away. They expose
Yeah.
themselves to headaches where the client might make a wrong decision for a technology that they have to manage. So having strong partnerships, a company that's ComTec, that we're hyper focused on managed services, teaming up with them. We understand the alliance, we protect their clients, we help them build, and we are very much in our lanes. They don't have to worry about a crossover of technology. And then we can increase their revenue. And by doing so, it gives them that ability to overcome their top challenges, just as generating more revenue. Right now,
Yeah.
they're actually making dollar for dollar per client way more money than they were prior to meeting us. Their employees are happy. A lot of times they take the commissions and they do a revenue share so they can attract and retain more employees and better, higher quality employees. And then certainly they differentiate themselves, which is one of their things is how do I become super valuable to my client that they never want to leave me? And when you embed different types of strategic partnerships into a single client base, you're far less likely to ever lose that client. In fact, you develop a closer friendship.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well, what we would and we would phrase it, you have to have a specific avatar and a specific product that you're selling to that avatar. And so understanding what your service is and putting together that package so that the MSP can come in with the package of technology that solves specific business problems and with partners that you can rely on to deliver that part of the solution, that's going to really help you stand out.
yes, yep, help you grow.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit. So it's middle of May, and we have our AI training day coming up in June. So we're recording this in the middle of May and in 2025 because these things do tend to live for a long time. So we're going to have a chat in June about AI for MSPs, and we're very interested in this concept of like how do MSPs actually make more money through AI rather than just yet another large language model subscription that sits on my desktop without any practical use whatsoever, right? So wondering how have you guys looked at AI? Are you integrating it into what you do? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I think AI, I mean, I said earlier, it's probably not something we would speak to an MSP audience about because it could be there's so many different levels of how artificial intelligence is embedded into every technology we use.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's applications in the telecommunications space, but it's really upmarket. I think the companies that are spending a ton of money with people are thinking constantly about how do I offset that cost? And the companies that build all the technology are thinking, how do I embed artificial intelligence into every possible product we could possibly build to offset a skill that a person used to do? So
Yeah.
globally thinking about it, everything we do from typing, thinking, answering a call, interpreting something, writing code, researching law, I would say we're all exposed, and a managing or a big part of where I see higher level personnel will be managing the experience of AI.
Well, and how is that affecting you, and how is that affecting telecommunications? Are you seeing a change in the service offering or the service demand?
Now, I wouldn't say too much AI is touching our space. We're still on the same call we're on. I mean, there's note takers and things like that are being embedded. There's interpretation to calls. There's the ability to interpret moods and tone and dialect and things like that we didn't have years ago. But again, I'd say it starts upmarket, because there's an expense to it before it becomes normalized and it'll start working its way down market. I say down market and that, it'll be in the Fortune 1000 and it'll be very costly to start.
Mm.
And I think, in the next few years, there'll be more and more tools that are just used every day that we just take for granted, like an iPhone or how we went from a typewriter to a computer. Eventually you
Yeah.
just look back and you go, how did I make out without it?
How did I live without? Yeah. Could you imagine? Could you imagine writing things by hand and then having a typewriter and then having to write things on a typewriter? They actually had to write on type, and the only way you could copy was with like a carbon sheet in between the two pages, and then
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I mean,
didn't
that's
even have
my,
Xerox, right?
in 35 years, I am 52 now. So when I graduated, what I've seen since 1990 to present day, I mean, you're literally going from typewriters to processors to, Microsoft coming out to, we're sitting here with AI and having video calls. I mean,
Yeah.
things were just, cell phones weren't even out yet. So yeah, I mean, technology is at a rapid pace.
The fax machine. Yeah, no, and it is. And I think that there are opportunities to use AI. I see one of our clients works with dermatologists, and one of the problems that they have is actually scheduling and managing telephones. And so they've started putting in an AI solution that actually answers the phone and schedules appointments that works significantly better than the phone trees, like the press 1, press 3, whatever, taking you through this whole thing that you get lost and then you have no idea what you're supposed to actually be doing type of thing. And the AI seems to be working well. So I think that we are going to see, I think there's a lot of hype in the market. There's a lot of noise and everybody's building AI into everything. But ultimately it is going to be those practical solutions that really solve a problem. And you're right, like 10 years from now, we'll wonder how we ever survived without them, right?
Yeah, it's definitely happening. Cars we drive, equipment we use. Yeah, it'll be on everybody getting a better experience, being more efficient, saving costs. We're always asked to do a lot more with fewer dollars, so technology is usually the tool we will use to get there.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why, coming full circle, MSPs are so well positioned to bring this to their clients, right? Because technology is driving that change. And if you were an MSP, you were at that point of change within your client, with the opportunity to notice where things are going and implement new solutions.
Yeah, and it takes, we said it earlier, but I really think most MSPs got to really take a big step back. And we
Mm-hmm.
call it quarterly business reviews, but really take a step back and talk to your clients about everything they're using. Present day, what could they be doing better? Where are they going to be in 4 years? And really talk strategy with them. And I think once
Yeah.
they see themselves as a strategist and not necessarily an IT provider, I think they'll look at themselves different. They're not treating an injury, right? They're almost a doctor preventing injuries. So they go into these organizations and they help coach and mentor and
Yeah.
guide. And very few companies are going to move ahead in this world without having somebody competent in guiding the technology decisions. And they're well positioned. They have the eyes and ears of the clients. That's why it's our number one target. And that's why we work so closely together with them.
Yeah, and it's not particularly hard to do. We just led a SWOT workshop, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we taught MSPs how to use that framework to talk to their clients. So the normal QBR is speeds and feeds and lots of technical data and tickets, and this is what we're doing. And there's this shift where if you can go in and start talking to them about their strengths and the opportunities and what where they're weak, what the threats are, that reveals all kinds of opportunities for you to come in with new solutions, right? But it's like you're saying, that does require the conversation be at that business level, be it something different than just coming in and reporting on the tech landscape.
Yeah. Instead of looking behind and reporting on results, right? You're forecasting metrics for them. What are your spends going to look like? When are your contract expiration dates? What type of bandwidth do you have today? Where do I see you? What are your threats that you have to your organization? Do you move to the
Yeah.
cloud? Do you move to a data center? Do you ever switch on moving to CRMs? All these different conversations trigger the opportunity to build that relationship. And for our world, we're a tool again. So but we sit inside every type of communication that client needs flows through a company like ComTec. So the
Yeah.
MSP has to make that conscious decision to say, do I involve a partner in helping? And it's a perfect scenario where we can actually guide the client, potentially help save them a ton of money. We're paying the MSP for services that they're guiding, and at the same point doing something really good for the client and just building a better
So,
relationship.
so do you have any good stories, examples, or anecdotes, things that MSPs have done or that you've done with MSPs that
I
we can
do.
bring
I,
into it?
I think one of my favorite ones, and I'm going back, it was one of my original MSPs that I started working with in 2016. They were a 10-person firm outside of North Jersey, outside of New York in North Jersey. And they were just adamant at first. They didn't want to do any partnerships. So the one partner had retired, and the second partner's like, well, look, he's gone. I'd like to start partnering. So from 2016 to 2022, as his clients came up for renewal, he started converting his base over to us, and we were just really just client mapping, we call it. Like, who are they using? Are
Mhm.
they happy? If they're not happy, here's a proposal. And over a period of time, you just keep developing trust and rapport and helping. It was in 2022. He said, it's funny. I look at my monthly checks that I get from you now. And he said, do you know I make more money residual by not doing a thing working with ComTec than I've ever made in my entire life running the organization? because
that's
perpetual
interesting.
money with no cost of goods is, he's like, I could use this to leverage a whole nother company. I could literally retire today. He goes, and all I keep doing is kicking myself for not doing it 5 years earlier. I'm like, well, every time I always look at it like we always have our chance to start. I wish I played the guitar when I was 12 or something, like every day is a new chance to start. I'm like, you did it, right? So here we are. And, to this day, it just keeps growing. And he just laughs. He's like, I can make more money referring technology partners in like you to my client base. And he's like, and then on top of it, it's what's helping me propel my MSP forward because now I have so much more free cash flow. So,
Yeah.
and since then, there's many dozens of organizations similar. It's just eye-opening because it's not something that happens instantaneously. You're planting seeds. The first
Yeah.
year, like, oh, I got a couple wins. The third year, you're like, I got 10 wins. Then we're referring business in. We're saying, hey, we have these 3, 4 clients. Can you help? And all of a sudden, that energy builds, and it takes on a whole new culture of the relationship between us and the MSP. And then it's a whole new dynamic between the MSP and their clients. And it helps them shift up market. And I don't think they see it till they experience it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my
It is
one
it is
thought.
definitely it is definitely a mindset shift, right? That you have to move towards the solutions and not worrying about providing them all yourself, right? I mean that is but that is part of the journey. That is part of the entrepreneurial journey. That's where we have to go,
Right.
you know? So that's great, Mike. I love it. I think, Joe still talks about residuals that he's getting from providers that he referred 10 or 15 years ago. He doesn't even have anything to do with his old MSPs, and he's still getting those checks, right? So it is a beautiful thing when you can set that up. So how does someone get started working with you? Where should they go? How should they? What's the first step?
Well, so I'm on LinkedIn. So anybody who wants to professionally link it with me, I always encourage it. Say hi. So it's Michael Vertolli at ComTec Systems. If you reach out to ComTec Systems, we're www.comtecsystems.net. So it's a pretty easy company. There's a go-to page. You could send any information to sales, but ultimately it's a channel manager. We team up each one of our MSPs with a dedicated rep. They would onboard you with a channel agreement and they would help you. It's not anything we actually send our partners alone. We have an educational program. We give best practices. We help with lead flow and we help with their client mapping. I think they'd really experience, like it'd re-energize them if they haven't done something like this to really hear what successful and growing and thriving MSPs are doing. Maybe they pick up one thing, they could pick up 6, but I certainly would encourage anybody listening to give us a shout, talk through it, and see if the program's right for you.
Well, that sounds brilliant. And join us on June 17th to be able to meet Mike in person, right? You'll be there.
I will.
And we'll have a great conversation about AI, and then you can chat with Mike about how you can set up those residual payments for the rest of your life, and it's going to be a beautiful thing.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Mike. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for listening, and we will see you next time here on Start, Grow, Manage.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.